guys, welcome back to Fresh from the Showroom floor. Today I have one of my favorite movie characters and one of probably the most famous movie spies of all time, James Bond's watches. So he wears a ton of watches, I mean probably 15 to 20 different watches throughout the entire movie series. Starting from Roger Moore, all the way at Sean Connery, you have Daniel Craig, Pierce Brosnan. I mean, all these guys wore different watches, but I wanted to talk about three of one of the most important watches to the James Bond series. So we have the Rolex Submariner 5513, and we have two Omega Seamasters. One's the quartz movement, one is the automatic movement. Both were the intro to Omega's watches. So we'll start with the 5513. This watch was actually originally worn by Roger Moore, 1973, 1974, and its last movie it was in was, I believe it was Live and Let Live, or Live and Let Die, sorry. The timepiece was actually the first that had gadgets in them from the Agent Q. She actually built this watch to have a circular saw as well as a magnetic bullet deflecting device, so he would just throw it on. He also used it for a couple different features, and I'll let you guys watch the movie to figure out what he uses that for. The first Omega watch that he wore was actually Pierce Brosnan. He wore the quartz movement Omega Seamaster, and then later ended up wearing the automatic Omega Seamaster. These two are essentially what were the first watches with the Omega James Bond pairing. They have a ton of different commemorative models as well, with different James Bond dials, different James Bond hands. So if you're a true enthusiast, the Omega watches right here are pretty much the basis of the James Bond Omega Seamaster. Now, when we go into other movies, he wore Spectre watches, and he wore the Skyfall limited edition, Planet Ocean. So there's a ton of different variations, but when we're talking about the true James Bond watches, he liked to stick with these three. Now, one of the all-time biggest comments made on the James Bond watches is the Submariner was probably one of the most recognizable and famous watches, and it's what turned the Rolex Submariner into one of the most popular watches in the world. This timepiece is regarded as one of the most collectible, as well as one of the most sought after, just because of the James Bond movie. Its last appearance was the last Rolex appearance in any James Bond movie, and ever since then no Rolex has been in a James Bond movie. It's only been Omega watches, and I believe even in 2019 they're coming out with a new watch to commemorate the next James Bond movie, which is Daniel Craig's last one. So my personal favorite, and many of the other personal favorites of people that are into the James Bond movies, will be the Omega Seamaster 300M, the automatic movement, not the quartz, because this is the one that actually had the most screen time out of any other Omega timepiece. So when you're checking them out online, we have a ton of these timepieces. We have a ton of the quartz ones. Make sure that you check them out. We have also all the commemorative editions, and I believe we even have a few of the later James Bond watches. So if you're a James Bond fan like myself and like many of our staff members here, check it out, because James Bond was one of the characters that brought watches to the big screen, and watches played a very important role in his movies. So make sure that you check us out online, SwissWatchExpo.com. Just type James Bond in the search bar and kind of do some searching, and you'll see which watches we have. We have a ton of great stuff. So it's always been a pleasure. Check us out on the next week's version of Fresh from the Showroom floor, and we'll speak to you guys soon. Take care.